Namaste, everyone. I am Chandresh Bhardwaj, and today I'll be talking about compassion in romantic relationships. Many of you have been sending messages and you have been sharing how it's been difficult to cultivate compassion during this time. And also, before the quarantine, before the pandemic, compassion has always been difficult, especially when romantic relationships reach a certain stage. Another set of questions that has been showing up and coming very often is why spiritual teachers go through a behavior, or they put a behavior where they lose their connection with compassion, where they don't act from compassion, and they are the teachers who are teaching retreats, certified courses, writing books, and have huge audience, and they are the ones who are the experts and the masters on compassion specifically. I grew up watching a lot of teachers, and this is something I have observed as well. And I feel this is where you need a guru, a teacher, someone who can remind you and kick your ego that you are not functioning from compassion, that you're not acting from compassion. There are countless stories that I've personally observed. And I think this is one of the reasons that subconsciously I never wanted to talk about joy, compassion, happiness, and all these topics. Because when you meet the teachers in person behind the doors, behind the scenes, and you really see that none of them are able to cultivate compassion, joy, and bliss off stage. On stage, they do. Off stage, they cannot. It doesn't happen. And I've written few stories in my book, but this is something that many of you sent in the past few months, and people wanted my take on it. So I thought I'll make a video and combine compassion in relationships and compassion, from a spiritual point of view as well. They go together. But before we go deeper, quick reminder that I have a workshop coming on May 17th with 1440 Multiversity. It's on Sunday, 1 p.m. PST, and it's a 4-hour workshop. So it's a dive deeper workshop where we'll be meditating and going deeper into a lot of powerful questions and meditation experiences. And the link is on my website, on the YouTube, on the Instagram, everywhere. So definitely check it out and join me in that experience. And now, talking about compassion. Before I give you the quick fix or tell you 3 ways to handle that compassion, I think it's important to know about what exactly compassion is. And also important to understand what exactly compassion is not. So, compassion is not mercy. Compassion is not even kindness. Compassion is not even love. Because the way our kindness and love shows up, I'm not a big fan of that. Our love is not love. Our love is lust. There's so much calculation, there is so much measurement, there is so much transaction that happens in love. And this is the reason why every breakup ends up in deep suffering, anger, and pain, because you are expecting something. And there's almost a business mindset that goes through in the love relationship. It's the mindset of give less and take more. In the name of love, we continue to squeeze their energy and their happiness, because we want our demands, our expectations to be fulfilled. And whenever the other is not able to fulfill our expectation, that's when we lose control, and that's when the breakups start to take place. So do not connect compassion with love, because it is going to take you in a different direction. And I'm going to talk about like 3 layers of compassion that I've personally observed. And number 1 layer is the layer of the mind. This is where, unfortunately, a lot of unconscious compassion starts to take place. What is unconscious compassion? It's the drive of ego. It's when you feel good, when you act out of compassion. It's when you feel recharged, you feel, that you are doing something really important. And this is the beginning when you start to feel good. And then your mind creates this interesting scenario that this act of goodness continues to bring you that high energy. And then you may start putting out stuff on social media, or you may start doing something because it's bringing you that power, it's bringing you that energy. And if anyone speaks against it, you feel angry because it's the ego, and wherever the ego is, the anger will follow. Ego and anger, they kind of work hand in hand. And this is not the scary part. Scary part is when you unconsciously want the suffering to multiply in the world because it's giving you that sense of power. There are unfortunately plenty of so-called activist teachers, leaders, and plenty of people, and there have always been, there still are, and there will always be, where they start a certain mission to help others, but very quickly it becomes an act of ego, and then you want the suffering to keep happening because it gives you a reason to bloom, it gives you the reason to have that power. And that's the kind of compassion that destroys a lot of stuff. It does not create anything, but it destroys a lot of humanity. It's a toxic compassion. It's not right to call it compassion. The second layer is the layer of awareness, the layer of love, where sympathy starts to happen, where you are not really cared about how others are reacting or if you are getting credit for it or not. But you want to do this because you feel a certain sympathy, you feel a certain love for that. And that's the kind of compassion which happens when you start to open your mind, when you start to expand your mind. Right now, the biggest challenge is, even if you want to do good, you want to do good within your zone, because you have been told you are brown, you're white, you're black, you are Hindu, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, all these religions, all the geographical barriers, the religious barriers, belief systems, they have done excellent job to divide the humans. We do not connect with each other through awareness, through consciousness. I've seen and connected with people where they are smart, intelligent, they're doing good, but they have that dimension, that direction of compassion where they feel they need to do that in a certain community, in a certain race, or to a certain gender, because it's divided. That selective compassion, in my opinion, is not compassion. If I'm doing something for a specific gender, race, ethnicity, and if somebody else shows up and if I say, no, this is only for this community, then it's not compassion. Compassion is inclusiveness. It means you and I are connected to one thread of humanity, to one thread of cosmic consciousness. But in the layer of love, you start to let go of that barriers. And I promise you, you can read the best of the best books on compassion, you can attend all the retreats on compassion. But if you don't let go of how you understand the other humans, if you perceive other humans through their color, their body shape, their religion, and their belief systems, that's, my friend, not compassion at all. Then what you're doing is you're cultivating a selective compassion, or creating this interesting illusion, interesting bubble around you where you think you are offering compassion, but it's not compassion. It's the play of your mind, it's the play of your ego. It's going to keep happening. So it's so important to bring yourself to a state of love and awareness where sympathy can show up. Sympathy is, if I see you sad, I'll be sad for you. I'll be disappointed why you are sad, and then I would want to do something. In this pandemic, there have been some really beautiful, genuine human beings that showed up, and they have been doing their best, they have been trying their best. So it's wonderful. And shout out to all those people, from the medical industry, the food industry, the banking industry, who are doing their work. And I would like to say, banking people, they are so underappreciated. They are going to the banks, they are making, running the money for you. And I know it's one sector which does not get the love and respect it deserves, but imagine if the banks are closed for 1 week, we all will go through such trouble. So please, definitely a big shout out and love to all the people who are out there putting their lives at risk just because the economy can run, the life can run. So That this is the sympathy that needs to happen, where you feel their effort, you appreciate their effort. And if you continue to show up for love and for awareness, and if your meditation starts to go real deep, then the third and the most sacred experience of compassion can show up. And that experience is compassion on the level of samadhi. Samadhi means highest state of consciousness. That's the compassion where you act from consciousness. The compassion on the second layer is from the heart, but the compassion on the next layer is from the crown chakra, the other dimension. And that's the compassion which Buddha, Jesus Christ, Guru Nanak Dev, and all the wonderful gurus and teachers, really, portrayed. If you read stories of Buddha, you'll know that there are people who would spit on him, who would throw shoes at him when he was, doing his lectures, but he would never get angry because he always acted from that highest compassion where sympathy is gone, empathy is present. When your compassion rotates between sympathy and empathy, it's impossible to hate. It does not come into your head. And I get messages from people asking my opinion on certain political leaders, on certain people who are not appreciated, who are not liked by others. And I have to mention, it's for me, it's always going to be difficult to hate. And I like that because I have gone through the path where anger, hate, and grudges would come very easily to me. But now when a certain person shows up in my head or in my life, and if they have done something to hurt me, if they have done something to give me pain, it's very easy for my mind to build a revenge plan. It's very easy for my mind to build that grudge against them. But I have to take a pause and observe the root of that person's behavior. There's a reason why they are behaving the way they behave. There's a reason why they act with anger, abuse, and toxic energy. It's not my job to fix them. It's their job to go through the journey of evolution. But it's definitely my job to step back and stop reacting, stop being dominated by my mind, and move my energy from anger to compassion, move my energy from a revenge plan to sympathy and empathy. It will at least release me from this battle, because no one wins in this battle. No one will ever win in the battle of the ego. And one thing I'll recommend you, whenever you start to experience your anger, your ego, remind yourself that you are more than the mind, you're more than these emotions. In Tantra, we have this principle of inclusiveness where everyone is part of that one universal, energy, where everyone is interconnected. And the mantra that I often, share, Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am the extension of that universe, and the universe is extension of me. And that applies to all of us. You are also extension of universe. I'm also extension of universe. But when you have lack of compassion, you might feel that only I am the extension of universe and you are not. But that it does not go that way. All right. So the point of this video is to remind you that compassion is a different ball game. Do not connect it with kindness or love all the time, because that's when your mind will play tricks. And compassion cannot be cultivated, honestly. This is where you feel the stress and anxiety, because compassion cannot be cultivated. Compassion is the language of the divinity. Compassion is the song of the divine. And to be able to sing that song, you have to get out of that way. You have to get yourself out of the way, which means let your awareness connect with universe. Let universe and awareness guide you. Let universe and awareness help you in this process. If you constantly interfere and calculate, compassion will not come. Compassion is uncalculated love. It cannot be calculated. It cannot be defined. It cannot be measured. Compassion is the effortless flow of acceptance and empathy. And it happens when you step out of the way, when you stop interfering, when you stop judging and putting your lens on it. So when you step out and let the awareness and universe connect, that's when things start to change. And it also means you have to constantly meditate on, who am I? Who am I beyond this body, mind? Who am I beyond this name, this skin, the color? Who am I beyond my profession? That's when the real, compassion starts to show up. And you don't have to be ambitious enough to aim for the empathy, the highest level of compassion. You can start with love. You can start with basic level of sympathy, where you're doing things without expecting anything in return. And do not connect it with your romantic relationships, because in romantic relationships we do a lot of transactions. We want certain things. We want to, if we want to give something, then we want to take something from them. And that's where the confusion happens. Compassion is an act of awareness which continues to build strength when you show up for it on a daily basis. I'll be very happy to take your questions on this topic. So definitely write down in comments any questions, any doubts that you may have. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe. And if you're watching it on Instagram, please do share it and do write your questions. Thank you.